Welcome and to the returning Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network. It's been a bit. This is episode 75. Now, a lot of you might be wondering, why has it been so long since we've had a Union Federation episode? Well, that's because there's been really nothing to talk about. The Orville is like on ultra classified information, and Star Trek has just been kind of doing its thing, going along slowly. But we do have one new Star Trek thing to talk about, because in this episode of the Union Federation, where of course we're here to talk everything Star Trek, everything Orville, and those two wonderful fandoms together, we're going to talk about the lower decks. But I cannot pilot the Union Federation alone. So, of course, I'm Kyle, but I'm joined here by this amazing crew, of course, with my fellow co-captain here at the Fandom Podcast Network. He's the co-founder. You can hear him on Blood of Kings. You can hear him on Culture Clash. You can hear him on The End Zone. Kevin Reitzel is back here on the ship. Welcome back to the crew of the Union Federation, Kevin.
It's good to be back. It's nice to be excited about some new Star Trek. And I know for Orville, we got to wait a little bit longer. It'll come out when it comes out, right? So, yeah, I'm excited, though. We do have some Trek to talk about now. And we also got some more Trek coming up. But I think it's time to welcome back the lovely Hayley. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm glad to be back, although I think I forgot where I work.
Well, we'll just point you in the way of the weapons console, Hayley, and all will be well.
It's been so long, but yeah, I mean, crazy hiatus, but we have to wait, and things are worth waiting for, so that's all good.
Yeah, but you know what? We're glad to be back. We're going to have a few surprises for you now that we're back. And of course, you know, we're excited because Discovery is right around the corner. We're actually going to have some Star Trek weekly episodes to talk about. But you know what? In the meantime, before we even get started, Kevin, would you mind opening up some hailing frequencies and telling everybody where they can pick up the signals of the Union Federation?
Of course, you can pick up the Union Federation, of course, under the Fandom Podcast Network umbrella. And we have our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. And we're also happy to say that the Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast catchers right now. So make sure that you support us that way and download us. We would really, really appreciate that. But also, too, the Fandom Podcast Network is on YouTube. So we're going to obviously have some special events going on YouTube, our YouTube channel. Just search Fandom Podcast Network. We'd appreciate it if you would give us a, subscribe to us so you would get that little notification, hit the bell there, and also like all the shows that come up. And all of the audio podcast will also go on the YouTube channel, but we will have some exclusive YouTube programs. So look forward to that as well. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Facebook. Make sure you check us out. And also check out the Union Federation Facebook group as well. We have some great people in that group that love both Star Trek and Orville, so make sure you check that out. You can email us at the Union Federation at gmail.com or the Fandom Podcast Network at gmail.com. My name is Kevin. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom.
And Hayley, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Trekkie01D. I don't do anything else.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Just kidding.
And we will be having Amy back, too, on some shows here. And you can find her on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. So there we go.
Yeah.
Kyle, back to you, sir.
Well, and of course, there's a couple other fun ways to support the Fandom Podcast. TeePublic. You got to get your Union Fed shirt on, like Mr. Reitzel is wearing now. It's absolutely gorgeous. He sports it well. And, you know, Kevin talked about, we have the YouTube channel now. We have, of course, Apple Podcasts. And he kind of let the cat out of the bag. I might have to call Section 31 on him because, yes, we are excited. She might teleport in this episode. We're not sure yet, but Amy Nelson is returning this season for Discovery to the crew of the Union Federation. She's been on a Section 31 secret assignment, but it might have been something about a lost leg that we've been missing since at least season 1 of the Orville. I don't know. I'm kind of worried about rigor mortis setting in on that. Maybe a little biodegradable, but Hey,
I just want to mention on a personal note too is that when us podcasters, a lot of us know us only virtually. You know, we haven't had a chance to meet each other. And I know, Kyle, you and Hayley have met in person. Kyle, of course, you and I have met several times. I have not yet. Hayley, I have not met you yet, but it's going to happen in person. We'll make that happen. But I did get to finally meet Amy in person when I was in Las Vegas recently. And we had a nice breakfast and caught up. It was great.
Yes, we were jealous. We wanted to be in Vegas too. But Kevin didn't let it stay in Vegas, apparently. So I can't guarantee what's going to happen to him before the season is out. But you know what, guys, real quick before we get into our main topic here, I just want to ask you guys, you know, we've all been kind of in lockdown and dealing with everything. Have you guys been doing anything with Star Trek or the Orville during this downtime at all? Or has it been just so much other stuff going on, trying to keep up with streaming and what's out and what's not out? And just kind of taking a break, Kevin?
I have been patiently waiting for my Orville Eagle Moss model that I ordered. It went for sale like several months ago, and I ordered like the larger version of it. So I've been patiently waiting for that because I've seen the Star Trek Eagle Moss stuff, and there's been some cool stuff on there. I haven't dipped my toe into that yet, although I may do that whenever the Cerritos comes out. We'll talk about that later. But that's what I've been kind of waiting on. I did go back and watch some Orville episodes, specifically several of them from the first one, and then I jumped into the second season as well, just to kind of get caught up yet. Because I saw my Orville costume hanging, you know, in the closet the other day. I'm like, oh, man. Because, you know, all the cons have been canceled this year, you know, so it's been kind of tough with that. But that's where I've been at.
What about you, Hayley? Because I know you've been catching up on a lot of stuff. You've been educating your young ensign at the house, you know, with all kinds of stuff. So I know maybe you haven't gotten into Star, but I know you've been watching at least one something Star related.
Yeah, so haven't been doing a ton around here just because, like you said, everything's just crazy. I actually returned to work in person in May, so I've been working and wearing a mask because that's the smart thing to do. Yeah, kiddo, we've been watching a lot of really fun shows, just a lot of older stuff. I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin. Kyle. Kyle, I don't even know anymore.
She's amalgamated.
That's where we're all
Kevin.
at, right? Let's be honest.
Kevin, to be honest with you, she's not the first person to tell me she's amalgamated us. I'm getting a little worried about this.
You know what? People get us confused all the time. You know?
Yeah.
It's 2Ks. I can't help it.
Yeah.
And I'm like in between the two of you on my screen. So
there you go. But
I did want to say though, Kyle, you turned me on to the sale that iTunes had for all the Star Trek movies.
Oh, yeah.
What was it?
20,
like
$20 for all 10 Star Trek films.
Yeah. $20 for all Star Trek movies. I was just like, done. But one of the things too, you guys have Hayley, do you guys have a Big Lots near where you are?
we do have one. I think I've been in there like once.
Okay. The reason why I ask is they have these like DVDs and Blu-rays like cheaper than they originally were when they were like in, however you bought Blu-rays and DVDs. But they had this cool version of, I think it was the Star Trek Into Darkness release, where it actually had the Enterprise, and then it's a cool little model, but then you open up the saucer and the DVDs are inside that. And I had to pick that up because that looked really cool. I didn't even know that was a thing until I saw it at Big Lots. And it was only $5.
Nice. I will say I was at Barnes & Noble and I bought Star Trek Beyond on vinyl. Ooh. It was 25% off, so I had to snag that.
You brought Star Trek what? I'm sorry?
Star Trek Beyond on vinyl,
nice.
The soundtrack.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm holding it up for them to see, but yeah, this is a Star Trek real cool design from the.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then the dish opens up and the DVDs are inside of it. I'm like, that is so cool.
That is really cool.
I'm actually jealous of that. That is very cool that you found that.
Yes.
$5.
Big Lots. Big Lots. There we go. So, guys, we have had something to kind of fill the Star Trek void, but it's something that, you know what? I think it's had a little bit of mixed feelings in the Star Trek universe and mixed reaction. So without further ado, we're going to go to the Officers' Lounge. Now, normally we'd be in this nice, beautiful Officers' Lounge here on the Union Federation, but for this, we are actually moving to the lower decks. Because if we're going to talk Star Trek Lower Decks, we have to do it in the appropriate pace. Hayley's already kind of giving me the signal. I guess I'm going to have to promise her a paper cutter later in the show.
Yes.
So we had our first animated Star Trek in a very long time. Now, this is different from probably anything we've ever had in Star Trek before. Star Trek Lower Decks, done by Titmouse, which, of course, is more famous for creating Rick and Morty, which is one of the most popular animated shows out there, but is also a bit of an acquired taste. Now, just a quick brief overview of what the Lower Decks is about. It focuses on the support crew serving on one of Starfleet's least important ships, the USS Cerritos. They have to keep up with their duties often while the ship is being rocked by a multitude of sci-fi anomalies. Now, the first episode hit about 10 weeks ago from the time we're recording this. And I know a lot of people who definitely went in with cautiousness, I would say. Some people very excited. Some people like, nah, I just don't think this is going to be my thing. Cautiousness. That's how I kind of went in, because I'm kind of mixed on Rick and Morty. Kevin, I think you kind of went in on that way. So did you, Hayley. And I think we may have all had different reactions to this. But Kevin, I want to start with you because I know you absolutely went bananas for this.
I was never into Rick and Morty, so I don't know of that style. It seems like everyone that I talked to was like, oh my God, you got to watch Rick and Morty. It's so awesome. And the more people told me how awesome it was, I was just like, I don't know. It didn't really seem like my thing. So I really wasn't sure what to expect from it. But the one thing that intrigued me about it before I even saw it, and I just saw some of the trailers, was that it looked like it had some humor to it that I think Trek's been kind of missing lately, you know? And the fact that it was, I'm assuming that it was inspired from the classic TNG episode from the 7th season called Lower Decks. The idea was something that was just really cool to me about these other crew members that the light needs to be shined on. And I remember I did an episode of Making Treks with our friend Adam P. O'Brien talking about this particular series, and that and we talked about the episode Lower Decks as well, because when you do a search for like the most popular Next Generation episodes, Lower Decks is in the top 5 in most of those lists. You know, it was just a breath of fresh air when the main cast and crew is put aside for a little bit, and then you see these other actors come in and do these great guest starring roles about the other parts of the crew of a ship. And so I went into it with an open mind on this, because it would look like something that I was interested in, and I was skeptical about the animation style, because I saw the Rick and Morty animation style, and it's okay, but it's not my favorite. But I'm going to comment on that first. The animation style in this, I think, is gorgeous, in my opinion, and even better than what I've seen from Rick and Morty. I love the look of this, and especially the look of the USS Cerritos. It's one of my favorite Star Trek ship designs. I love it. But we'll get into more about the episode and stuff. But to me, this gave me a very humorous look at Star Trek that I have been starving for a while. I love humor in Star Trek, and I think that they took a risk, and it's not paying off for everyone, and that's fine, but it did for me.
Hayley, I think you had a little different reaction from the first episode than Kevin did.
I definitely did. And while I think the premise of the show is really quite fascinating, I love this idea of second contact, following a ship that goes and has to follow up from the Enterprise, let's say, and whatever chaos ensues from that. But I'm not a big fan. I enjoy it all. I've sat down and watched it all so far. And it's not my thing, and that's okay. I think it is beautiful. The animation's great. I think the characters are pretty fun. The dialogue is a little too fast for me. The first few episodes, it didn't have subtitles on, and I missed a lot because I just was like, what did they say? Tandy Newsom, her character, Mariner, she talks so fast, and I cannot keep up. Usually it's pretty late in the evening, so that might be part of it. But it's bottom so far for me as far as the shows that I've seen for Star Trek. Just, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, both of your reactions I've seen. For me, I enjoyed the first episode very much. I thought the second episode was a bit of a step down. But I think it's really improved as it's gone along. I like some of the character development that they've done with it. I think they have a lot of fun with it, and I've really enjoyed it. I know we haven't got to the finale yet of this time it's record, but I'm actually very fascinated to see the upcoming finale because I thought the most recent episode, episode 9, where the big secret of the Cerritos is discovered by one of our main characters, and I think the fallout from that is going to be very interesting. But I like I said, I've enjoyed this. I was kind of hit or miss with Rick and Morty. There's some episodes I think they get some really interesting humor stuff, but there's sometimes I just like, no, just not my thing. But I think they've got a good balance here, especially as they've gotten later in the episodes, of having the comedy element, but having some legitimate Star Trek things. And I love the fact that they've made some great Star Trek references throughout this series as well. In fact, well, we'll get into it when we hit the episodes, but they've got some great voice actors, including the great John Delancey voicing Q. So, I mean, you can't ever go wrong there, Kevin.
This is true. The voice acting, I think, has been really good and spot on. And what's interesting, Hayley, when you're talking about how fast that Mariner is in talking, I completely get where you're at with that. Two things that I started doing recently that helped with stuff like that was I started putting subtitles on everything that I watch now, if I can. And I definitely do it for this show because I've caught some things that I didn't quite hear audibly. But going back and rewatching it, though, a second time, and, it's an easy rewatch because they're only 25 minutes or whatever long, or 20 minutes, whatever. But I completely see where you're coming from there, but the voice acting overall, I think, is done really well. And a lot of these people, I wasn't quite sure who they were. Tawny Newsom, I do remember, who plays Ensign Beckett Mariner, co-starred in Space Force with Steve Carell, and she was one of the leads there. And it kind of threw me off because she was good in that, but she wasn't like the funny person in that. She was this kind of serious up and coming astronaut, basically, that was within that thing. And then seeing her kind of do this is interesting. But Jack Quaid, who plays Ensign Brad Boimler, of course, most people know him as Huey now in the very popular Amazon series, The Boys. It's weird, though. I can't see his voice, and then you watch him on The Boys. I just can't put them together yet. It's just so weird.
No, it is.
But one of the standout characters for me is Ensign Devana Tendi, played by Noel Wells. I really like her, the Orion girl, which I thought was interesting. And then the guy that really cracks me up, though, is the Bajoran Lieutenant Shax. He's the security guy, played by Fred Tessasori. He's done a lot of
Tessacor.
Okay. Yeah. He cracks me up, though. But yeah, I think the voice talent is spot on. I really enjoy it, Kyle.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Eugene Cordero as Ensign Rutherford. I really liked him in that. And of course, a couple names from the past. Don Lewis from A Different World, who plays Captain Carol Freeman. And of course, the great Jerry O'Connell as Commander Jack Ransom.
Yes.
But you've had some great guest stars here too. Paul Scheer, Vanessa Marshall, a lot of course, best known for her Star Wars work, especially as Hera in Star Wars Rebels. Yeah, like I said earlier, John Delancey played Q. Haley Joel Osment had a great guest appearance as Lieutenant O'Connor in the Ascension episode. Which he was great. One that both Kevin and I liked, Phil Lamar as the Admiral at the beginning of the first episode, who happens to also be Ensign Mariner's father. And, of course, the great Kurtwood Smith as Klar, in what, in my opinion, is one of the best episodes of this show.
Love me some Kurtwood Smith.
Yep. Haley, was there any of the characters or voice actors that did really stand out for you in the series?
I agree with Kevin that I think the voice acting is really phenomenal. They've done a fantastic job. I know with animation, they try to give the characters some, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Kind of personality that the actors who are doing the voices, it's really great that they kind of try to play that into each other. So I agree that everything's been great. Some of these I had no idea. I did not know that was Haley Joel Osment, and that's insane. Because I think of him, I think of the little kid. He's grown up now. What?
Hey, a lot of boys tie-ins with this, because Haley Joel Osment was in a couple episodes of first season of The Boys as well. Kevin,
yeah, JG, and JG Hertzler did an episode as well. So. They definitely got some talent here. Yeah.
Well, let's kind of go through the episodes real quick and see what we thought of them. The first episode, Second Contact, where we kind of learned that the Cerritos is kind of the lower end of this Federation spectrum. They do a lot of second contact, going in after first contact is made, and of course doing the real dirty work. And this, of course, in this episode, we're introduced to our characters, our four main characters. Kevin, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought they did a great job of introducing the Cerritos and the crew, and just how insane everything is on the Cerritos.
Yeah, you also get a good look right away of what Ensign Beckett Mariner is like, and Brad Boimler, who wants to just do everything right. He's a little
brown noser.
Not just brown noser, but he's just very kind of anal when it comes to certain ways certain things go, and I thought that was very, very funny. But Beckett Mariner, I think, is one of those characters that you have to. I can see putting people off right away, and with her, the way that she reminded me a lot actually of what. Kyle, remind me the name of the female lead in Val Kilmer's Real Genius.
Oh.
Talked very fast.
Yes. I'm blanking on her name. We just did that.
Yeah,
CPT.
very hyper.
We're
very
old.
Hyper and stuff like that. Yeah. But it kind of reminded me of that a little bit, though. But I got to tell you, though, and I think that we need to touch on it, is the opening. The music in this is very good. And I think that's getting overlooked a lot. And I love the opening theme where we get the USS Cerritos, which I love the fact that it's a California class ship. And I've been to Cerritos many, many times in my life in the LA area. So it's just so funny that there's a tie into the Cerritos City and then the California class. But I love that opening sequence where you see the ship kind of like, Borg fight, now I'm out, and that weird like creature sucking on its nacelle, it's just I love that stuff. But it was a good introduction episode.
Yeah, no, I agree. They even mixed in a little zombie action, a little bit of this. Haley, I know you said it really didn't grab you right out of the gate, but was there anything in the first episode that kind of stood out to you? Like, okay, I can see where Trek fans would like this though too.
Well, I think the fact that they throw in so many different character drops and episode drops and just weird random
references,
objects and stuff like that. I think the Easter eggs are really, really great because this is taking place after TNG. If
like
I'm
soon
remembering
after,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So there's some really great references to what we've seen so far. in Trek at this point. And so I really do enjoy that. It's really fun. I think they do it appropriately. It's not just random thrown in. It suits the episode. It suits the character development and the conversations that the characters are having. I'm like Kevin. I like the theme song. It's really grown on me. And so that opening sequence, it is kind of fun because it really shows you that this ship is not top of the fleet at all. They're pretty far down on the list of like, okay, if we have to use them as a last resort, we'll do it, but only as like an ultimate last resort kind of situation. So that's really fun. So that's what I got from this first episode. I will say, sleeping in the hallway, do they have like doors or curtains on their beds? Because that's really awkward and weird. And like, do they sleep in their uniforms because they wake up in them? I don't get it. Like, I know in like old movies, like when you watch and they're on a train and they're sleeping on a train, they have like curtains at least where they're sleeping to close. Like, but just like randomly, like, hey, we're just open. Seems a little weird.
Yeah.
For me.
We're going to kind of just briefly go through each of these episodes, kind of highlight a couple moments that we liked or disliked. The next episode up is Envoys. It's a high profile mission goes just wrong in so many ways. Well, Mira is plagued with self-doubt. Mariner shows just how much of a naturally talented sci-fi badass she is. But my thing that I loved about this episode was everything with the Rutherford storyline, where he quits engineering to explore other departments. And one of the greatest parts of this whole season is Rutherford on the holodeck trying to make captain's decisions, and Ransom is there and he's like, you just killed every child on the ship. Run it again. Let's see if we can do better. Kevin, what did you think of this episode? Anything stand out for you?
I love the what was it, the reference when Mariner's talking in her sleep, she mentions buried alive, marooned for all eternity, and the moons of Nibia, which were snippets of Khan's speech to Kirk in Star Trek II Wrath of Khan. These are just one of the little things that I loved that reference to, because even though this show references a lot of TNG stuff, references a lot of non-TNG stuff too, which I think is great. So, but yeah, Rutherford wanting to try all the 3 different divisions, I thought was great. And the security guy, what's his name? Forgetting his name. Shax. I think he was a highlight in this episode.
Yeah. Hayley, what about you? Anything that stood out? Or
well, the stuff with Rutherford definitely stood out, and I looked at it as, it's great that every single time he said, no, I want to try something else. Like when he first goes to engineering and he goes to Billups and he's like, I want to try a different track. And they made it seem like they were going to be mad, but then they were totally supportive. And that's what a person needs when they're like, I think I need to try something else. Maybe this isn't for me. And so for me, that was a big thing in this episode, that each time he was like, no, this isn't for me, they were completely supportive of him and not saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, you're stuck in this track. You're stuck in engineering ops. You're stuck in command. You're stuck in sciences. They were very encouraging of like, well, if this isn't for you, that's not for you. And that's okay. And that's great. One other thing, Boimler really needs to learn some really good meditation techniques to deal with his relationship and friendship with Mariner, or he might like murder her by the end of the season.
This is very true. The next episode, though, Temporal Effect, addressed one of the long-time standing traditions in Star Trek, guys, buffer time. I love this. As soon as they even brought this up, all I could think about was Scotty talking to LaForge in Next Generation and saying, no, you've got to tell the captain it's going to take you longer. Don't give him the exact time. Hayley, I absolutely just got a laugh out of this, and the fact that they take away the buffer time and the crew loses its minds.
Yeah. And for me, from this perspective of looking at it through psychology, it's really quite fascinating, because if you don't allow people to use the time they need, this is what happens. If people get under a time crunch, they cannot do everything effectively. It's trying to do 10 things all at the same time. You're not ever going to finish any one of them, and you're not going to do it well, and you're going to exhaust yourself. Yeah, definitely. We were discussing that when this came up, and that buffer time, and and Geordi talking to Scotty. And I think it's fantastic that they kind of use that in this episode in a way, not referencing it, but it's there and everybody who knows about it knows, and we know what that is.
Yeah, Kevin,
and we get Miles O'Brien.
Yeah. Kevin,
it's a big giant gold statue.
Yeah, I love how at the end, it's like what did they call it? The Boimler effect. What is it? He's like, oh, that's not going to become a thing. Oh, it's a thing. And then at the end, he gets that mention, and then of course, but let's talk about one of Starfleet's biggest heroes, Miles O'Brien. I just love that because Miles needs more love, and I just thought that was great. But yeah, I this was a fun episode.
Yeah. Next up, Moist Vessel. This was actually an interesting episode. In this episode, Captain Freeman seeks the ultimate payback after Mariner blatantly disrespects her in front of the crew. She does it by promoting her. I loved, Kevin, how in this episode we see just how the life of a lieutenant in Starfleet never ends.
I know. I love the idea of the captain, the mom. It says, "You know what? I'm gonna promote her." And I loved the response that Mariner was just like, "What are you doing? No, get that away from me! Get that away from me!" But you start to really think at this time. It's like I want to get a little serious here. When this episode came on, I really liked the idea of this, but I was starting to wonder if the Mariner character will start to evolve, instead of becoming this ultimate slacker to a certain degree. We want to see, that's one thing that we love about Star Trek is character,
growth.
Yeah, growth, and just learning new things and evolving and stuff. And so I was kind of curious if this was going to kind of lead to other things. So, yeah.
I think that's a good point. And I really thought we started to see some development in Ensign Mariner and exactly what her motivations are for being the way she was in this. Hayley, did you pick up on that?
Kind of a little bit. I will say her character is a little frustrating for me just because she is purposely obnoxious and purposely doing things because she doesn't want to evolve and improve and have more rank, essentially. And that's kind of frustrating because our Star Trek characters want that. They want to improve themselves, and she's the complete opposite, and she's challenging this notion, and so that's really interesting, but she's definitely not my favorite.
I did like the call out though to the poker being played by the senior staff. That was kind of cool.
It's a friendly game.
Yes. Well, and this episode is really interesting because the ship's becoming this living organism, and it reminds me of Masks from TNG, or
that's a good point.
Genesis, when they're all becoming and the ship's like getting all these plants growing in it and stuff. So
we're going to get to that in a little bit, but the next episode, Cupid's errant arrow. Mariner is suspicious of Boimler's new girlfriend. Tendi and Rutherford go jealous of a bigger starship's gear. Guys, if you answer good on this, I'll let you take the T-88s home with you. This episode was kind of fun. I think the aspect I like more of this episode was the fact of seeing them kind of be swallowed up by this new ship more than the actual main plot of this. The secondary plot I thought was a lot more fun than the primary plot on this. Hayley, what did you think?
Definitely, for sure. It was interesting to see this, Mariner being suspicious, and clearly she may have some latent feelings for Boimler that she's not wanting to acknowledge herself, considering she went to the lengths that she went to, and essentially caused him to break up. And it kind of makes me think of someone who's miserable and unhappy, and so they want the other people around them to be that same way, so they do things to sabotage things that make the other person happy. That's kind of what I got from this episode.
Kevin, you don't have any parasites that just make you naturally attractive.
This is what I liked about this episode, was that I love the fact that Mariner was just convinced that why would a girl like so he's expecting her to be like some alien parasite. We find out the parasite's actually on Boimler, and it makes him attractive to her, which I thought was great. And I loved it when they put the little alien inside the little glass thing, and it's like That was very funny.
Yeah.
Stuff that made me laugh. But Deep Space Nine makes his first appearance in Star Trek since What You Leave Behind, which I thought was kind of cool. And I would not have caught onto this if it weren't for my trip to Vancouver a little over a year ago, where several of the shuttles of the USS Vancouver were named after Vancouver neighborhoods. So I thought that was very cool. But I liked this episode. I thought it was so funny, especially when Mariner grabs her and like de-pantses her. It's like, what are you doing, man?
Oh, Kevin, you just like this episode because they also addressed the charm of the Cerritos.
The what? I'm sorry?
The charm of the Cerritos.
The Cerritos?
The Cerritos, yeah.
What was it?
Well, they were talking about how even though they could be on this fancy new ship, they love all the broken down parts of the Cerritos.
Oh, right. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the Cerritos ship. I love its simplistic design. I think it's great. I love how the warp nacelles are attached with that piece on the bottom. I think that's a gorgeous ship.
Our next episode is Terminal Provocations. The lovable, awkward Ensign Fletcher makes work difficult for Mariner and Bulmer. Rutherford introduces Tendi to a holodeck training program that he created. Guys, I was not a fan of this episode. This episode just kind of annoyed me. Come on. Just no. Kevin?
It wasn't a great episode, but I think it was a good Tendi episode. I liked, and then how Tendi and Rutherford got closer in this. Overall, though, not a great episode, especially with the weird Badgie thing going on.
Come on, Hayley, you want to stuff Badgie.
No, I don't. He reminds me of the paperclip.
I was thinking that.
The paper clip that comes on your computer. Well done.
Gosh, thing was so annoying. Like, no. Well, and it's interesting that, we've got another holodeck incident. That's what this episode is. It's a holodeck incident.
Yeah.
Things are going wrong in the holodeck really bad.
Our next episode, Much Ado About Bulmer. Mariner tries to impress her best friend from Starfleet Academy, who's now a visiting captain. Brad is sent to a Starfleet medical ship after a transporter accident puts him out of phase. This was a great Ensign Mariner episode. I really think Kevin, you talked about Mariner evolving. I really think this was a great episode for that. Come on, though. Do any of us want to go to the farm? That's kind of what I'm wondering.
Was this the one where she meets the rest of that crew and there's that Vulcan woman? Is that the one that kind of like
her best friend from the academy?
You've been here for so long and you're still an ensign?
Yeah, exactly.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. When it comes from a Vulcan, it's an extra sting.
This is true.
It's like it was like a Vulcan burn,
Well, in this episode, it's fun because it's not Lieutenant Eric's from TAS, but it's the same species.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys notice that?
No, I did not.
The captain, you did not notice that the captain of the ship that takes him to the farm is the same as Lieutenant Eric's from TAS?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't catch that. That's
Jeez,
good.
Wow. Okay, watch it again.
Apparently, it was the first appearance of an Edosian since Star Trek the Animated Series. I love how they're spreading this stuff around. Yeah. And paying tribute to all of these characters from all of Star Trek, not just Next Generation. This is one of the reasons why I love this show.
Yeah. Well, and especially the animated series, because a lot of people just tend to skip over that or don't really count it in. Yeah. And so I think it's fantastic that, we have a Cation doctor on Cerritos and, essentially Lieutenant Eric's species came and was in an episode again.
Can we make #Vulcan burn a thing?
I think we can work on that.
Yeah.
But it was not a Star Trek season if it doesn't have a court episode, some kind of court episode. So that brings us to the next episode, Veritas. As Mariner, Bulmer, Tendi, and Rutherford are caught off guard when aliens force them to testify about a series of seemingly unrelated events. Guys, I love this episode. I'm not going to lie. I especially loved Rutherford telling his version of the story.
Rutherford was great in this one, and that was a great scene. I really, really enjoyed this, and this is where Kurtwood Smith as Clar was in this one as well. And I just love him as an actor, but I love him that they brought his voice in this one.
Yeah, Hayley, this episode was fun. They played on some classic Trek ideas and just had a blast.
It definitely did. And there was a lot of really fun Easter eggs. I loved the essentially Uhura's dance scene from Star Trek V was kind of brought up and Boimler having to do it. And, Sub Rosa, we had Drumhead, we had a Space Seed, Infinite Vulcan reference, all the different character references in this too. I think one thing that caught me though was Tendi was excited to testify. I recently had to testify in court myself. And that was terrifying, and I never want to do it again.
Which is why it's so funny. She's like, oh, I get excited.
No. Well, she was a cleaner.
I will say, I think the best part of this episode was Q showing back up, and Mariner was just annoyed, and she was telling him off, like, no, we're done for today. We've had enough. She's like, go bug Picard, and he talks about, like, but he's always making wine and quoting Shakespeare, and that was the best part.
The whole trial setup I love was a great nod to my favorite Star Trek movie of the original cast is Undiscovered Country. And I love how you got that feel right away watching that. And the way that Clara was questioning the lower deck officers and being undressed, not in that way, but being dressed down. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes.
Just done really, really well, just like Christopher Plummer did. Back in that movie. So.
No. And of course the twist at the end on this whole episode was great. And I loved it. There's a line. It's like, no, you only paid for 22 minutes. This was a great episode, which leads us to episode 9, which is the last episode that is out at the time we're recording this. Crisis Point. Mariner repurposes Bulmer's holodeck program to cast herself as the villain in a lower deck style movie. They were having fun when they did this one because they just took everything they could in this movie and just took it so over the top. Kevin, I was enjoying myself completely through this whole episode.
Yeah, I love seeing the evil Mariner, but also it played on the Orion, whatchamacallit, I guess
Syndicate.
Yeah, the Orion Syndicate, but just how people look at the Orions a little bit and how they played on that. And I liked how that was kind of, mentioned in the episode. And I thought that this was a fun episode, and I loved, even though it's another type of holodecky type thing that goes wrong and you get the evil versions of characters that you like. And that's been done so many times. I liked this one. I thought it was done well, and I really did enjoy this. And I think everyone had a moment to shine, but I loved Evil Mariner. I thought that was good.
Hayley, the thing I think I loved about this was the fact it pulled from so many Easter eggs. I mean, you had of course the credits joke, but you had like the Star Trek Generations ship crash. You had the battle with inside the ship. So many little things in this episode that just were great. And the Easter eggs, I even love it at the end when they do the credits at the holodeck and it's still in their handwriting of their names. Mm-hmm. And of course
that was at the end of Undiscovered Country. Yeah.
And then of course too, the big thing out of this is something that has been running through the series is the fact that Brad finds out that Ensign Mariner is actually the captain's daughter, which is going to play up big in the season finale.
Sure. Well, and I think one that caught me, one of the references was the ship flyover from the motion picture when they're first going in. That one was really fun.
I think it took as long as it did from the motion picture. I loved how they spent like a good minute on that, even though it seemed much longer. And you're watching it going, are they going to go as long as they did in the movie?
I kept waiting for the joke. Will you just land this thing?
But hold on. But there was a very subtle scene in that scene where it showed the one officer was like, I think he was either driving it. The one that was in the mustard color uniform. You see him,
the engineer, chief, the chief
motion.
Engineer,
the engineer. Yeah, I thought that was great.
That is, this episode had some really fun things, but I think for me the biggest thing was, Mariner's being sent to counseling for clearly some anger management. But for me, it's like her mom. They need to have like family counseling to process their stuff. And while different therapies are definitely helpful for processing your trauma, your emotions, your experiences and whatnot, what Mariner did really wasn't quite a good way to go about it. I think she did what she needed, and she kind of learned that she was more fighting herself than anything towards the end of the episode. But At the same time, her and her mom really need to have a deep conversation, because it's not okay that they treat each other that way, and it's not okay that they feel clearly a lot of negative stuff about each other, and they need to work on it. Otherwise, they're never going to have a good relationship with each other. But yeah, one thing I do want to posit to you guys, based off of some stuff that happened between Rutherford and Billups. So in the very beginning of this season, Rutherford goes on a date. Seems to be going really well. The girl's dad is a cyborg, so she kind of has knowledge and experience with that. Doesn't go well for him, I guess, so to speak. He doesn't want to go on a date with her again. But with what happens, is there a possibility that Rutherford is gay? What do you guys think? Did you pick up on that at all with because he was I'm going to tell Billups how I feel and what I think, and I think he's this amazing engineer, and we're going to go off on the ship with each other, and we can fix things together. Did you get that sense at all? Because I kind of did. I don't know about anybody else. So listeners, please let me know what you think.
I wondered about that, but then I was like, well, what about that scene where he's teaching Tendi on the episode that
and they kiss,
and they kind of with the gravity boots getting stuck together and stuff. So yeah, I was wondering about that. I don't know if they're still,
or maybe he's bisexual.
Yeah, I'm wondering
perhaps.
if they're kind of exploring his character a little bit more. So yeah, that's a good point.
He's my favorite. Yeah. I'm gonna say.
I think they were playing it up a little bit. I think you're closer with the bisexual thing, but I think they were trying to kind of just play up the engineering love there too. But yeah, no, I really enjoy Rutherford too. Obviously, Lower Decks is tad mixed reaction, but it is renewed for a second season. Kevin, are you? I know you're loving this so far. Do you think this is going to stick around for a while, or do you think maybe we get one or two seasons?
I hope that it does, because I think that it's found an audience, and I know several of my friends who are big Star Trek fans that are done with it. They're like, it's not my Trek, and that's fine. But I have a feeling that since it's going to be around and we're going to get a second season, I think it's going to find an audience again with some Trek fans that are going to give it a second chance.
Yeah.
And I think that when it comes to Trek in general, I've been seeing that happening with a lot of people going, Voyager wasn't my thing. Now they're watching Voyager, or Enterprise and stuff like that. So it's going to be around. I think it has hit a part of Star Trek fandom that deserves to be, what's the word I want to say? I don't want to say that. I think it's found a niche that I think Star Trek needs. I think it needs this kind of fun, let's kind of poke fun at yourself type of storytelling with Star Trek, because Star Trek fans can take Star Trek very seriously, and in some cases too seriously. And I think it's good to step back and have a show like this that not only does that, but has some fun characters, also gives you great shout outs to Star Trek that we know and love. And I am a huge fan of the animation style, and I'm excited for it. So yeah, and I can't wait for the season finale.
Yeah, Hayley, I think we're in a time where Star Trek is kind of in this evolving stage where we're getting a different look of Star Trek than a lot of people have talked about that with Picard and Discovery. And I think this is just part of that evolution. But what I love about this, as far as Lower Decks goes, is that all the homage it pays to where it came from as well. I mean, yes, it's not everybody's cup of tea with the style it is, but I think most Trek fans need to give this at least a couple episodes a chance, because I think they're going to be more pleasantly surprised, if nothing else, by the Easter egg references than anything else.
Well, and I think, we should all give everything a chance, but at the same time, I think sometimes that can be taken as, well, you should watch it just because, even if you don't like it, and stick with something and watch something just even though you don't like it, just because it's in the Star Trek universe and everybody else is watching it, or so it seems. And so I'm afraid of that happening too. Like, if this isn't your thing, you don't have to watch it. No one, should make you. And I think that's what's great about this, is that it has found its audience, and there are fans who absolutely love it. There will be new fans who come in because of this, because that's their style, that's what they like, and they'll go back and maybe watch other stuff to understand the Easter eggs that have been dropped in it. But I think that's what's wonderful about what they're trying to create, is they're trying to give a little something for everybody, rather than saying, okay, here's our thing, and if you like it, you like it, and if you don't, you don't. They're saying, okay, here's this thing, and if you don't like it, that's okay, because here's this other thing, and you might like that. Like, I really enjoyed Picard. Discovery's fun. I liked Picard more, and I like Picard and Discovery more than I'm enjoying Lower Decks, but I'm not going to say that I'm not going to watch it. It's just not my cup of tea.
I think, too, one of the things I like about this is that it has brought even more attention to the Star Trek animated series, the original one. And I'm holding up the original DVD release of this that has a really cool box design. I actually did not buy the Blu-ray. I decided to keep my DVDs because this packaging is so attractive and just looks so cool. But I think it's brought some extra attention to this original series, and I hope that more people will who have not seen this will have fun with it and revisit it because of this animated series and the references they've been making to it. So there you go.
Well, that's going to wrap up our discussion down here in the Lower Deck. So we're going to kind of clean ourselves off from a few dilithium crystal dust, maybe go listen to the warp drive for a little bit. When we come back, we're going to talk some Discovery Season 3, some Seth MacFarlane news, and rest in peace, CBS All Access. We'll be right back after this message telling you what else is going on around the Fandom Podcast Network.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Blood Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we're back. We hope you're enjoying everything we're doing around here because we're trying to do our best to give you podcasts to feed your ears. Now, it's great to be back on the Union Federation ship. It's great to be talking the Orville and Star Trek, but if we're going to do that, that means, too, we're going to intercept some subspace signals. So, guys, we're about 2 weeks away from this recording of the season premiere of Star Trek Discovery Season 3. I think it's fair to say the reaction to Discovery has been mixed over the first two seasons. A lot of people have some criticism, some fair, some just maybe not so much. But I saw this latest trailer come out, and I have to admit, if nothing else, I'm very intrigued by what they could do with Discovery Season 3. Because for me, guys, one of the biggest knocks I've had on Discovery is the fact it's been so Michael Burnham-centric. And yes, she's our point of view character. She's our main character. But one of the best aspects of Star Trek has always been the focus on the crew as a whole. And I'm hoping from what I'm seeing of this trailer that we're going to see more of the crew as a whole and really see some development in the crew. Hey, I want to start with you. What in this trailer kind of grabbed your attention? What are you hoping for Discovery Season 3 as we get ready to dive into it?
I am definitely going into this with an open mind, just as I have with most new Star Trek shows, just because I don't want to put any expectations on it that could let me down. And so I'm cautious and I am excited. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do because, We already know the Federation is kaput. I'm intrigued by what the burn is and what has caused all of this chaos and how the crew kind of finds their way. And they are going to, I think, have to pull together and be very crew-centric because the Federation's gone and they're trying to pick back the pieces and they have no idea because they just came 930 years into the future and everything is new. And so it's kind of this exploration of everything almost. You know, we love the episodes where they're episodic. They go to a planet. It's new to them. They have no knowledge of everybody. And that's what this whole season really is going to be because everything is new. And so it's really interesting. And I'm curious about this cat.
Yeah, like I'm looking forward to Book too. I'm liking that character. Yeah. I can't wait to find out more about him. Kevin, I want to go to you because I know Discovery is coming into the season and it's got a lot to prove to you. We've had this discussion off mic. It's not that necessarily you're negative about it. It just has not gone the way that you were hoping for and hasn't become your cup of tea for Star Trek.
It's not that I want it to prove anything to me at all. I don't look at it like that. I guess cup of tea, it hasn't been my cup of tea is the best way to kind of describe it because season 1 and season 2 have been so different, and I like it when more of a crew is kind of celebrated and being written and developed, not just one character coming through, like the Burnham effect that we've discussed so much. The one thing I got to say though, visually it has been a beautiful show, and when it I guess the ship itself, to me in Star Trek, the ship has always been the other character. And the Discovery ship has definitely been a character, but I have missed the what we get from Star Trek is having a captain of that ship and the wonderful crew that is supporting the ship and supporting the captain as well. And we haven't really had that. It's been kind of this weird kind of who's going to be captain this time. And what I did love about the second season, though, is that we got Captain Pike out of it, or as Hayley would say, Captain Shiny Pants Pike.
Yes.
And that was a pleasant surprise, and I'm very excited to see where that new show comes from. But to me, I didn't really... I don't know if it was just overall direction of the show, but I had trouble latching on to some of the secondary characters because I felt like they weren't given the proper amount to shine. Usually it happens when you have a one-shot episode that then focuses around one of these characters. It was very dark, too. One of my issues, where Star Trek decided to go really dark on us. And I think that you need to find the fun in Trek as well, the fun in exploration, and also the hope. You need to find the hope of the future. And one of the things I'm a little worried about is this burn thing. Is it going to shatter our expectation of what we love about the Federation, and how even though we've seen the dark side of Federation with Deep Space Nine and the recent films and stuff like that, we still believed in the Federation and the hope of a better future. And so I'm kind of curious to see where that's going to go with this. And, I know there's several fans have given up on Discovery and it's not their thing. I haven't given up on it. I am going to give it a shot. I'm kind of like, because when I saw the trailer for the third season, being 900 years in the future is throwing me off, to be honest with you. So I'm curious to see if I'm going to go with that. But I loved visually what I saw in that trailer. It looked really, really cool. And seeing where the characters are going to go. And I got to tell you, though, the one character that I did latch on to that I think really kind of stole the scenes that she was in, and I'm forgetting the character's name, but it's played by comedian. Is it Tig? What is her name? Tig Notaro?
Isn't it
Jet
Reno? It's a
Jet Reno. Yeah. Freaking love that character. And seeing her in this season 3 just made me really, really happy because there was something about her delivery, her, in your face, honest way that she would just say things. I hope that she's one of those characters that I can look into. So I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, I think, Kevin, one of the things too with this season that when we approach it is, I think this feels like a part of the season is going to be its darkest before the dawn. And I think that's where we're going in. We're going to have a little bit of darkness to start off with because we're going to find out what happened with Starfleet, what's caused Starfleet to be in this position 900 years in the future. But I think it's also going to be a bit about a rebirth of Starfleet as well. Just from trying, and I like the fact there's a lot more daytime shots that we've seen in these trailers. There's I love the look of the crew kind of going without uniforms and kind of going with this in adapting to the environment they're in. And the trailer really did feel, Hayley, to me like they were really going to expand and put a lot more focus on the crew as a whole instead of just one or two storylines. I think one of the issues, the reason why we haven't got that crew development is because of the fact that every season of Discovery so far has been one overarching storyline instead of individual storylines. We're going to have that again, obviously, with this season. I think this is how Star Trek is being written now because we've seen the same thing with Picard. But I think they're learning that, hey, wait a minute, we still have to have what made Star Trek, and that is to focus on the crew as a whole. So I feel better about what they're going to do in season 3, but I think they're going to need a little time to develop it. I just don't know I'm curious to see if people will give them the time to do that.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do, because I do want those other characters to shine just as much, because I think they all are strong in their own way, and it is only going to make the show better.
Yeah.
If we can get more, not like a ton of every single character, but more of other characters as well.
Yeah, just I think,
and less Burnham.
Yeah.
The one thing the one thing that I have to get used to, and I think Star Trek fans in general have to get used to, is this is a different type of Star Trek storytelling. And I get that. And I think it was kind of a culture shock to a lot of Star Trek fans that have written this show off already. And I'm not, like I said, I am on the verge of doing just that, but I want to give it a shot and see what this show is going to do and surprise us for a third season and see what's going to happen. So,
yeah. If I were to flip the coin on this real quick too, there is one thing I'm concerned about and it was one of my knocks on season 2 was so much Section 31 stuff. Obviously, we've seen Michelle Yeoh in the trailers. I love her character, but I really hope we're not getting a ton of Section 31 stuff. If we have it a little bit that's underlining to lead into the Section 31 show that they're going to be making, I'm fine with that, but I really hope it's not a heavy presence of that, Hayley.
No, I would agree with you on that. I think where we've had just a little bit, it got a little too much in DS9, but I think if you have one or two here of like maybe B stories in an episode, that would be just fine, and that would be enough.
Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I was thinking about the first season.
We were talking about how we see Michelle Yeoh in this newest trailer
right.
too. So which means we're probably going to have a little bit more Section 31 during the season. The question being is obviously that was a knock on season 2 was we got too heavily involved with that. I understand that they are probably trying to spin off the show into that, but so if they do a couple B stories where maybe it's like Michelle Yeoh is trying to find the Discovery or something like that, I can roll with that, but I don't want to be heavy on Section 31. They need to put the focus on the crew.
Yeah, I got confused because I was looking back on the first season where we were introduced to Michelle Yeoh and where that took us with all the Klingons and stuff like that. And I like I like Section 31. I'm not opposed to it. I want to see another side to Section 31 where it's not black ops torturing people all the time. You know what I mean? I want to see that there was a positive reason or a good reason why this whole thing started, and that it just didn't turn into, dark parts of our U.S. government working behind a black cloth, that type of thing. So we'll see. I want to see more to it than something like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're excited. Discovery Season 3 is almost here. We're going to have some new Trek to watch. We're excited to have anything new to watch at this point, I think. But we're going to be covering everything that is Star Trek Discovery Season 3 here on the Union Federation. Don't worry. We got the crew lined up. We got guests lined up. We're going to have a good time with this. But we also talk about the Orville here on Union Federation. And there hasn't been a lot, Kevin. It's been maybe like one of the biggest secrets in Hollywood. But thanks to Jessica Zor, we finally got Seth MacFarlane to speak a little bit on this online interview Jessica Zor did with Seth MacFarlane. She got this out of him. All I can say is we're working on it, working very hard. We got hit by this pandemic delay just like everyone else, and we are working on it. Zor indicated at the time of the pandemic shut down production, we were like pushing through the middle of the season, scripts were banging out, gas pedal down, and it was like, halt! But even with a good chunk of the season left to film, MacFarlane maintained we'll be back soon, folks. There's been a lot of speculation online. Will the show come back? The series creator and Captain Ed Mercer portrayer noted, the show is still a huge priority for me and the cast and everyone else. We do have a season to finish and we are going to finish it once the logistics for producing a show in this climate are figured out. For a show with a lot of prosthetic makeup that requires close contact and a lot of background artists, it's a big job. And you want to make sure you do it in a way that keeps everybody safe and secure, MacFarlane explained. Once we have those protocols figured out, we will start up again and you will get more Orville. Of course, the Orville will be on new to the Orville Season 3, besides Hulu, that is, will be Ann Winters of ABC's One and Done Grand Hotel, playing a character by the name of Charlie Burke. So we've heard from the man himself. It's being worked on. I guess we're just, like you said, Kevin, more patience.
Yeah, and, with COVID happening, too, and the work stoppage, this was one of the casualties that we were afraid of. But they were into filming the third season with Hulu being, of course, the new home for it. And so they were into it when the work stoppage happened. So I knew that they were going to finish this season, but the big question of whether or not there will be a fourth season is what is in question. But like I said, I'm going to be patient for this show because it's one of my favorites since it debuted, and I'm really, really excited for it. There seems to be some, we keep hearing little reports of either whether it's drama behind the camera or whatever it is. But I think that they are committed to doing this. But like I said, the biggest question is whether or not, if we get when we get the third season and when exactly that's going to happen. Obviously, I think we're going to have to wait till 2021. The way that, from what I hear, they're writing it, though, is if they're writing it as if it could be their last. So they'll have probably a good season finale on it. I'm hoping that it does well on Hulu and it's strong, and that we will eventually get hopefully another one. But if we only get 3 seasons, I'll be happy with that.
Haley, any thoughts coming out of this?
Well, I mean, there's not much they can do. Like the article said, it's, you have so many people who are working close contact with others for prosthetics. I mean, there's no way to safely produce it, and I would rather them have it on hold. Just like everything else, we can't get mad about, stuff being on hold. It kind of sucks, but it's what it is, and I'd rather these actors and the people who work behind the scenes and behind the cameras be safe and have to wait a little bit longer than, pushing through and doing something that puts people in harm's way at this point. So I'm anxiously awaiting to see season 3, but I will happily wait because, I don't know, it's the right thing to do.
Yes. And that's the world we live in right now. Yes. I mean, we're already at 17 months since the Orville ended season 2. So it's been a big gap. I'm really hoping that when it does time to come back, they give it a lot of marketing push and really make people re-aware of it. I will tell anybody, now's the time to go rewatch the Orville, get yourself re-familiar with it, or if you haven't watched it, get Hulu and check it out. It's a fun show. It's one of the reasons why we have this podcast. We love it. Looking forward to it coming back, but we want to make sure it's coming back in the right way too. So I'm very excited about that. But we have one more piece of news, and that is, guys, CBS All Access is dying. I mean, it's a sad.
I thought it was
tragic
just
thing.
going for a name change.
Well, facelift maybe. Yeah. There's been a lot going on behind the scenes with CBS and Viacom and Paramount. Hayley, I know you've been we're kind of following it there for a while as well. Everybody's come home and are under one big banner now, and early 2021. CBS All Access will become a thing of the past, as it will be getting a rebranding as Paramount Plus is what they're going to call it. This is going to add a lot of new things and capabilities for this streaming service. Even the talk of possible rumors of doing exclusive movies for this service. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. CBS All Access has been kind of one of the mainstreaming hubs because of Star Trek. But now you add in this Paramount side of it, Kaylee, it's going to get real interesting really quick.
It is. And my only thing is why Paramount Plus? Like, why didn't they name it something else other than that? Because it's still all the CBS stuff. It doesn't make any sense to me, or they could have just picked some weird wonky name. I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah,
but I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to any exclusive content that they create. Maybe because Star Trek 4 is just never going to happen. That's right. I said it, folks. It's not. Let's own up to the fact we are not getting a fourth Kelvin film. It's done. It's dead in the water. But perhaps maybe with this, we would get something exclusive just to Paramount. Maybe they'd be able to make a movie on there.
Yeah.
Question for you, Hayley, and
Yes.
I'm beginning to agree with you, by the way, regarding that Star Trek 4 with the Kelvin cast. But what this merger and the reason why this Paramount Plus is going to be a thing now, and what CBS All Access is morphing into. Was this, from what I understand, though, this was hopeful. This merger was good news to fans, because then we would possibly not get any weird fighting among the TV rights and the movie rights, that then a Star Trek movie, whether it was Star Trek 4 or not, was more viable to happen because of this now. Right?
Well, definitely, for sure, because they're under the same house. Paramount just doesn't have the funding to make another film. They were, going back and forth with Chris Pine on what they were going to pay him, and Chris Hemsworth was going to be in it, and they were going back and forth with him as well, and then he dropped it, and then they were still kind of arguing with Chris Pine over what they said they would pay him to do another film. And so it definitely brings in more funds to create another film. It also opens it up to including some of the actors who were in series, because they couldn't necessarily make something. Paramount didn't have the television rights, so they couldn't call Deep Space Nine actors or Voyager or Enterprise actors to make a film, because they fell under CBS, because they were on the TV side. And so this definitely opens it up to I'm going to say made for TV movie, simply because that's the lingo I remember. It's easy for them to say, hey, we can make a made for TV movie and just put it up on this streaming service, and people who have it can have it, and they can include anybody and everybody under the roof because they are now together. And it also opens up, if they did want to make a fourth Star Trek Kelvin film, or something completely new. I've heard that there's possible talks of this, that it would be completely new. It wouldn't involve any of our TOS characters at all, be completely new people. It definitely allows them to have more funding available to do something like that when they can.
I think the big winner of this is probably Brave New Worlds. I think they stand out to maybe be kind of one of the flagship things for this Paramount Plus, and really getting.
You mean Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, Strange New Worlds. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
To really get a lot of funding and do this show, they do that show properly. I'm excited about this too, Kevin, because just they open the door for a lot more streaming stuff out there as well. It's not going to change any price points going to Paramount Plus. It's just, hey, you're going to have all this extra stuff on there, including a lot of original programming they're working on for Paramount Plus. But I think it's great for Star Trek.
Yeah, what I would like to see, and I just thought of something regarding this Section 31 thing. I think that what Disney Plus is doing is, like, for example, Disney Plus is going to have this Obi-Wan TV series, but it's going to be limited. It's only going to be probably 6 episodes, maybe 4 episodes. And I think it would be fine that Star Trek could also go with that. If we're going to get a Section 31, does it need to be a full commitment TV series of 10 episodes, 3 seasons or whatever? Throw out a mini series or whatever it is that you want to call it, and see if that's all you need enough to tell the story. Throw out a 2-hour movie that goes just to the streaming service. You have the power and you have the platform to do it. We don't need commitment of 6 seasons, or like we did in the old days when we had 24 episodes or 22 episodes and 7 seasons. I don't really need that anymore to tell good stories. And I hope that this is an avenue where if we like something in Star Trek, whether it's a guest spot or something, and we think it's a fan favorite, give it a shot for a one-shot thing and see what happens to it. If it's popular, then spin it off to its own show or do something. But I think this is a good thing for streaming platforms to allow fandom to say, we really like this. We don't necessarily need a full series commitment for it.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. But you know what? That's going to wrap things up here for this edition of the Union Federation. I want to thank the crew, as always, top notch and outstanding. Just enjoy your bunks down in the lower deck, guys, because we're a little crowded up here. I might be able to promote one of you, but not both of you. Kevin, Hayley does kind of control the phasers, so I'm just saying, just ignore any preferential treatment.
The lower decks people, they know how to party. I'm good with that. I've also seen the Titanic. They know how to party down in the lower deck, so we're good.
Okay. Hayley, thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to diving into season 3 of Discovery. It's going to be fun. Amy Nelson will be here for us to talk Discovery. She had a little problem with some dilithium crystals this week, but you know what? We're going to have her here. We got a couple other people lined up here. Some faces that you might be familiar with if you listen to other shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. But Hayley, it's always great to be here. I know Lower Decks wasn't necessarily your cup of tea, but I'm glad you came and joined us and gave us your thoughts on it.
Well, definitely. I think that's what makes Star Trek great, is if we all have different opinions, and that's okay.
And with that, we're going to close those hailing frequencies, and it's warp time.